topic again this week. What we typically start on Sunday is a light direction that Nellie and I take up, and sometimes the other teachers join in, and other times they go their own path, very much like our practice tenet. So the topic this week is appropriate action.
And we contrast it to being determined by a fixed set of moral rules. Rather than that, appropriate action really requires us to respond. Well, we believe appropriate action requires us to respond creatively, ethically, and as wisely as we are able to each situation that we encounter.
Right.
Maybe that's a high bar, as much as we are able.
And we broaden the term appropriate, which is another way to talk about the adjectives before each path, each factor on the eightfold path, which are, there's 8 factors that basically, taken together, present a path for us to follow in Buddhist teachings. And it's sometimes this word samma is defined as appropriate, sometimes skillful, right, creative, wise, ethical.
And so today we're talking to the translation of appropriate. Perhaps all those translations have their place, though I think it's really good to alternate them and use different ones because they each have a bit of a shade of a different meaning. A shade different meaning. There. I got that sentence in the appropriate order.
Well, and appropriately, we tend to kind of get excited when we get a little different angle on one of these. And so we had a little different angle, subtle, emerge today in the conversation before this conversation. But first, I'm going to just give a kind of technical definition of appropriate of the adjective, because it has 2 meanings, and we're going to go into the adjective. It means suitable, fitting, or proper for a particular purpose or situation.
And what we're saying is that Buddhism has got a lot of particular purposes, though I think most all of them fall under the rubric of ethical. But we have purposes here which are different than whatever. If we were trying to get to outer space, what would be appropriate would be quite different, right?
Right. Or, competitive, bringing in other purposes like to win something, that's not really part of our program, so to speak.
Right. Though some Buddhists would like to win enlightenment, but that's another story altogether. We are not into winning enlightenment here.
So because we're not, it really, we need to have, this requires ongoing awareness and discernment for appropriate. It's like they have to go together. You have to have some way to be able to discern your action, discern what kind of action you want to take, and then take it in the world, bring it out from even the inner discernment of intention and thinking about what am I going to do?
Right. And of course, I think I'm going to make this linear, perhaps it's not, but just for conversation, I think that awareness precedes discernment. If we're not aware of something, how can we discern about it? We're out to lunch, we're not
Yeah.
present to the situation. So
Yeah.
that really, yeah, that needs to precede action. Now, that doesn't mean that there has to be a log, pause or something. Sometimes it's very clear, but that's probably come from a lot of discernment and a lot of awareness that historically that we've done.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, Nellie. I mean, I think this kind of distinction of it coming first and even coming together like sometimes it's like we wake up and know what we have to do. Like it's hard to say what came first, but there is, if you're not aware of something, and the topics we want to talk about today, old age, sickness, politics, AI, I mean, big topics.
Oh yeah. Oh, those are nothing. Piece of cake. No, really big topics.
Right, right. And we're really saying that we're going to be talking about these topics because we need some more awareness about them. Like we don't know everything there is to know about these topics. And talking about them, bringing them in as part of our Dharma practice is really important. They're not going to be left out. Um,
Now, the first two, old age and sickness and the political, are the Buddha dealt with. I am not sure the Buddha dealt with AI, but he did maybe deal with changing communication, but we'll get there. So old age and sickness, it requires a lot. That's my experience of it. I feel like there's so many possibilities and choices about how to treat sickness. You hear it left and right, especially if you get sick, people have all kinds of suggestions. Um, why don't you pick it up from there, Linda, since you're sort of, this is your field. You worked with
oh
people.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is an interesting thing to get to something that's appropriate. Often we're going to be trying something experimentally to find out it's not appropriate. So it's almost like you can't deem it before you know it.
Right.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. And when you think about treatments, be they, allopathic, prescription medications um, or herbal, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
we all have different responses to them, and some work and some don't work, and some really make us sicker.
Right. Right. And sometimes it's not clear. I mean, this is the other thing. Before we even know what's appropriate, we might be in a lot of confusion or, still exploring or investigating and not making a decision on the way to appropriate, to finding appropriate.
Right, and I know you have the same experience as me. I believe you label yourself as an atypical metabolizer, like I do. So, so what works for other people may make us sick, or what doesn't work for other people may work for us. This is really complicated.
And I would even go so far to say is our path is a little atypical. Reflective meditation and this kind of broadening, opening things up, trying not so much to find the right answer, but the appropriate answer. And there it is, two of the qualifiers, right and appropriate, but used differently.
Hmm.
Your appropriate is going to be a little bit different than my appropriate.
Right, right. Um, so now on to the political, which is, of course, God, we could talk for months on it, and we shall talk for a minute or so, but it requires even more discernment. There's so many choices about how to respond to what's going on politically and how we do so with honoring our capacities, with honoring our values, and really figuring out what we can do in these times,
Mhm.
what action we can take.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were listing that off, Nellie, I have this sense of, being aware and actually how much we can be aware of, and, really being able to discern when awareness is overload, when it's destabilizing, when do we need to take a break from awareness? Is that really the right way to say it? I don't know if it's taking a break from awareness or just not like pushing to be so aware.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm,
Well, and then I think what you're getting at is being aware of one's own capacities and what one needs to keep going. I think you're
right,
talking about a different kind of awareness, really.
right, right, right. Recently, I took a workshop on AI. This is the next big topic. And it was something that a few of us have been really diving into to know more, to be more aware of what's going on. And the workshop was really very fascinating, interesting, and also it seemed to have large consequences for our communication with each other, going forward, now and going forward, because we're in it. Um, but it really is challenging. It brought up the challenging nature of knowing what's appropriate, in, this large field that's, burgeoning. Um, at the same time, our politics is a large field.
At the same time, getting old and sick is a large field. So we're talking about large fields. But we do have a conceptually somewhat simple direction here. It's not easy to do, which is how can we soften rather than become more rigid with these challenging things that there isn't a clear um, path forward. Um,
Yeah, and this is one thing I had thought, softening seems to come with aging, but not necessarily. So I do feel like some of my views have softened as I've aged, but I also can't separate that from my practice, softening some of my certainties, softening some of my extreme views.
And there certainly is the stereotype, and all stereotypes have, some reality in them, of old people becoming more and more rigid and set in their ways. So that is one sort of almost seductive direction to go in the face of uncertainty. This is what I'll do. It's this.
Right. Right. I almost felt like when you said that, it's like almost a giving up, and just going with that and going into that hardening and going into that view rather than doing more of the work that it takes to soften around some of these things and the effort that it takes. And this is where that eightfold path, there's eight, maybe more spokes on them. They're really connected.
Yeah, indeed. Well, shall we sit
Yes.
with whatever comes up from these larger topics or from the topics that are impacting our lives or the condition?
Yes, we shall. And welcome back and welcome to any people that are newer to us, and folks we haven't seen for a while, and all of you who attend regularly. Nellie, would you like me to do the bells today?